All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next session of the day. Apologies for the hiccups in our previous session. I promise that Yos will come back with a recorded session, and then we will do a follow-on Q&A with her sometime in the coming week. So those of you that were curious about the future of learning and education, I promise we'll come back and cover those. But for this session, we have Peter Zing, who joins us here from Australia, and our amazing partners out in that part of the world. And he's going to be talking about opportunities for automation and remote delivery of goods and services in this time when we're all confined to our homes. So Peter is a keynote speaker and writer on emerging technologies and their impact on humanity. He also works on technology and growth initiatives at KPMG. They help organizations navigate and flourish in these unprecedented times of change and disruption. Like I said, he's also part of the Singularity U Australia team as an advisory board member and faculty, and he is an executive member of the Science Party in Australia, a political party committed to upholding the scientific method in policymaking. Thanks for joining us, Peter. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks for having me. Wow, it's fantastic to be here, guys, and glad you're joining in. In the times of these changes. So today I'm going to be talking about the opportunities for more automation and the remote delivery goods and services in light of COVID-19. And I think there's the opportunity, the upside right now is the burning platform for the digital transformation ecosystem. My associate director role at Technology and Growth, we help these large organizations thrive in these circumstances. And in Australia, we're actually helping with Singularity University getting through the executive program. I wanted to start off with the scarcity problem that we have now in terms of our mindset and also the abundance that we want to get to. So toilet paper scarcity is one example. I think it's a prisoner's dilemma in that, we're all prisoners in our home right now, and we can either hoard or not hoard, and the outcomes will depend on how we collaborate with each other. But it's not a zero-sum game. So we'll talk about that, how that we can get to that journey of abundance. We've seen in Australia that, there's been just absolute chaos in the supermarkets, but this is happening all around the world. You can see there was an actual fight that occurred in our local Woolworths. So this will be our the Walmart equivalent. And these two actually started fighting, these three, because of there's only a limited number of toilet paper on the shelves. And right here, this lady actually just wanted one pack from that sort of stash over there. But the mother and daughter said no, because they wanted to keep that for their family. And it's totally understandable, but right now we're living in that sort of scarcity mindset. And it's happening all around the world. And in the bottom right there is from New Zealand. And over here, you can actually see that this is actually not just limited to toilet paper now. It's starting to apply to every single non-perishable good. And Woolworths is actually limiting all items sold in a category amid the coronavirus panic. But unfortunately, this is how things are playing out in society. There's a lot of people sort of trying to come up with the reasons why there's sort of a lot of this panic buying. One of our colleagues at KPMG, David Evans, actually wrote a piece on, is the coronavirus panic buying influenced by how we perceive volume? Because, toilet paper rolls take up a lot of space. Humans, our brains aren't designed to sort of measure actual quantity in terms of 3D space. So in terms of taking up a lot of volume, toilet paper does seem to be flying off the shelves. There's been a lot of reasons that have been out in the publications and newspapers saying, well, what are the different reasons? Number one, people resort to these extremes when they hear conflicting messages. So the government's not telling them the same thing every day. Reason number two, people are reacting to this lack of clear direction from officials. Number three, the panic buying begets panic buying. So this is the prisoner's dilemma happening. And reason number four, it's natural to want to over-prepare because our evolutionary sort of journey has led us to the point where hunters and gatherers, everybody's gathering right now. And reason number five, it sort of allows some people to feel a sense of control because there's no cure, no vaccine, no treatment at the moment that we're aware of. People are just saying retail therapy is the only way I can control what I can do for my family. And one of the professors, people in Australia, actually the columnist Waleed Ali, was like, well, one day someone will write a PhD to explain the toilet paper panic. Look, this is something that will get there, but I've done a lot of research on how toilet paper is actually manufactured, because if we want to get our journey towards an age of abundance, we actually have to change our mindset and understanding the production methods and the supply chains that are involved. So there's actually an entire documentary on the National Geographic around how toilet paper is manufactured. And surprisingly, it's quite automated. All you really need in terms of inputs is water, energy, and cellulose. So this is found in trees. Apparently, we use 27,000 trees globally every single day just to produce the toilet paper needed for everyone on the planet. And so this is completely unsustainable in the terms of the approach. In terms of this particular example, Silverdale Group, they use this production method. Wood pulp goes in. And also, you can use recyclable paper, but for the really nice puffy type of toilet paper, that requires wood pulp, so cutting down trees. And so this is sort of the process in the manufacturing plant is quite automated. There's some people still overseeing it, but it's really the distribution from the natural resources, the trees, going into the plant, and then distribution of the toilet paper going out to the end customers or the warehouses and the shopping centers, and then to the end customers is where the sort of supply chain limitations are. So let's go into that more deeply. From ARK Invest, so this is a company that invests in disruptive innovations, headed by Kathy Wood, who's a Tesla bull, but she makes a lot of sense in terms of the sort of investments and the logic she makes. That times of crisis, innovation is thriving, and in terms of automation, their definition encompasses industrial robots, service robots, and automation systems powered by neural networks. And so the work I do is really in the sort of automation in terms of finance and other technologies, but using neural networks to do that on the digital side. In terms of industrial robots for manufacturing, the service robots for logistics, vacuums, delivery robots, nurse assistants, for example. And for autonomous systems, it's restaurants, production lines. We'll go into those in more detail. So looking at industrial robots, these are getting more adept with every task. The startup company Vicarious, so this is a secretive startup company that was backed by Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, and Jeff Bezos. They're revealing the sort of progress with initial customer. After 10 years, that's pretty good. In terms of what they're doing is they're buying off-the-shelf robotic arms and installing the software that they've developed in terms of the image recognition. And what they've actually done before is decode the capture codes. So it's actually cracked how, I am not a robot type button. They've actually cracked how they can see the letters and numbers in the capture codes. So they're applying that sort of same method in terms of recognizing, in this case, jumbled collections of a box of lip balm. And they're actually able to stack them up and plug them into the neat piles that they need to. So you can probably do that with toilet paper and sort of production lines as well in terms of sorting that. OpenAI as well on the top right, they've developed a robotic arm that actually can see and manage a Rubik's Cube. So solving a Rubik's Cube on its own is pretty impressive, but if you get a robotic arm that can do it automatically, that's pretty damn impressive. And the bottom right, you have the Spot Mini and the Atlas from Boston Dynamics. That's going to be rolling out in terms of the factory floors. Spot Mini is available for lease to use in any sort of use case, as long as it agrees in with their policies. But these sort of technologies, these industrial robots, are getting more adept with every task. Robots will cause a shift from unpaid to paid labor. So what does ARK Invest mean by that? So in terms of automation systems, they can operate much faster than much of a fast casual restaurant. So grocery shopping, food preparation, and cleanup, they'll shift from unpaid tasks at home, the home cooked meals, to paid jobs at fast casual and other restaurants, as well as their suppliers. So they measured that the cost of a meal by location in the US, for example, for a home cooked meal, when you count the food cost, the food prep and the cleanup cost and the grocery time cost, it's about $12 US. And compare that to, say, a fast casual restaurant where a lot of the processes are automated, that's going to be reaching cost parity around $12 as well. In terms of that cost of food to the US consumer, they've measured that right now that consumers are spending food outside the home of $930 billion. That's the size of the current market. And when you look at what happens from the food inside the home, the unmeasured component, this non-market activity of about 67%, the total is about $2.4 trillion. So all this food prep that we're doing at home, even though we think it's healthier, right, at the moment, in terms of that, it's a lot bigger. So that's the addressable market that these automations can do, shifting from unpaid to paid labor. That last mile delivery as well, getting it from either the casual restaurants or the manufacturing plants to the end consumer is still done by humans, right? This sort of contractor work from Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Foodora. In China, it's Meituan and JD.com and Easy. in Europe, the Deliveroo and Glovo actually switched on contactless delivery because of the COVID-19 pandemic. People don't want to touch other people while they're touching their food. So, this is sort of thing, an opportunity for automation to happen at the last mile. And we're seeing more and more investment, especially in China, that's happening right now. Examples include, the autonomous freight trains that are carrying from, warehouse to warehouse. For Uber Eats, it's the delivery drones. You're already seeing Tesla's autonomous vehicles in terms of autopilot. It's going to be coming on full autonomy later this year or early next year. There's the autonomous trucks with Waymo and Too Simple, and Amazon Prime's drones that are happening in the last mile. And then this one down here is from actually the JD.com's robot. So getting that sort of last mile delivery happening from the restaurants to the end consumer. This driverless delivery van over here is the Neolix. This is in Wuhan, and it's actually backed by Baidu. It's actually seeing a huge demand surge amid the outbreaks. So, quite obviously that's going to happen because China's trying to fight this coronavirus with delivery drones and all these autonomous robots. So, company from Antwerp, the Japanese company TerraDrone is employing UAV systems to transport medical samples and quarantine samples in China to fight the coronavirus. So they're getting sort of external help as well. And this is MatterNet. So the new drone landing station looks like a sci-fi movie prop because, the doctors can actually go in, put the samples into the space station, and it'll fly off in the drone to deliver to the next testing lab. So this is sort of becoming more and more real, and this burning platform of having to rely on autonomy is creating greater innovations in this space. So this other research from ARK Invest saying the service robots are penetrating the logistics space, right? So since deploying its first robot in 2012, Amazon has ramped them up roughly 200,000 units in its fulfillment centers, while increasing the total employment by 7 times. So based on these superior economics, the robots are likely to dominate the food delivery space as well. And you can see this sort of trend line along the employees that Amazon's been having, and also the robots that are going in proportion to that as well. In terms of cost of delivery, it's going from $1.60 US per mile from a human delivery to 0.96. So that's 6 cents for autonomous delivery robot in the US. That's a 95% cost savings. So these are the projections that's happening. In terms of sizing the entire opportunity for automation, ARK Invest thinks that it's going to be an $800 billion adding to the US GDP over the next 5 years and $12 trillion over the next 15 years. So by 2035, GDP could hit $40 trillion, nearly 40% higher than it would be the case without automation. That's compounding at a 2.4% growth rate instead of 1.8. So you can see this sort of trend line where in confliction of the curve as we get through GDP with automation. But what does all this sort of GDP mean for the average consumer or your average US citizen or global citizens? So this is where sort of Andrew Yang's campaign, he was running as a Democratic nominee. Therefore, his freedom dividend of $1,000 a month was proposed for every citizen over 18 years old. So it's $12,000 a year. He was saying that, so the benefits of the automation aren't being passed on to the average US citizen, and because it's going to the shareholders of the companies that's creating the value in the automations themselves. His campaign had to end because there wasn't that much as much support as they should be. But you can see that he thinks he should have been talking about the pandemic instead of an automation because he set up this nonprofit Humanity Forward, and now he's actually helping the Trump administration understand what a stimulus package with UBI would look like. With AOC, she's demanding the government distribute the UBI as well and implement a Medicare for all to fight the coronavirus. And here's one of our colleagues, Nathan Waters in Australia, saying, look, that $1.5 trillion US federal stimulus was gone in a matter of 20 minutes. So this is the blip that happened on the day it was announced. And think about what we could have done with that money. And Andrew Yang was saying, well, that $1.5 trillion is enough to give $1,000 a month to everyone in the country for 4 to 5 months, getting cash in the hands of consumers to increase business confidence and spending to actually have that Keynesian economic effect. So, there's that recent Trump administration listening in on what Andrew's thoughts are in terms of creating that stimulus package. And this hashtag Yang was right. It's trending, using American checks to mitigate coronavirus economic impact.
Hey, Peter, your audio just changed. Can you check your audio source?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It sounds like you are in a bubble now.
Is that a little bit better?
Oh, it's way better. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
I'm not sure. It might be just a server thing.
Fair enough. All right, you're back. Good to go.
I'm good. All right. I'm hoping I didn't lose you guys too much before, but this next topic is going to be on remote working, learning, and automating for self-sufficiency at home, and essentially building your own abundance. We've heard earlier around the working from home, around coronavirus, how it's making it see how hard it actually is to work remotely. But there is an abundance of technology tools out there. Whether it's G Suite or Office 365. G Suite just hit on 2 billion monthly active users. And, all these sort of investors are saying, well, invest in Zoom, invest in Slack and Atlassian and all those sort of things, because there's been a surge in demand on this digital transformation while we have this burning platform. In China, it's Ding Talk and WeChat at Work. Ding Talk is supported by Alibaba, WeChat with Tencent. But also the challenge from working remotely is that, a lot of companies haven't had to do this full time for their employees. So they're getting, all these gremlins out of the way, just like we are, like with Crowdcast. But we're actually, once we make this all smooth, we'll get to a point where we're going to be more reliant on these technologies and used to the way of working. At KPMG, we have a global Microsoft alliance, and we use Teams. For the first year that we had that Teams available, it was a ghost town. No one knew how to use it. It didn't have critical mass. But now, over the past week that we've been working from home, this has actually exploded in activity, because not only are people showing pictures of their work at home desk environment, they're also sharing, all the sort of details about themselves that, as throughout the course of their work. And I feel more connected with my fellow colleagues than ever before. In terms of the distractions, though, at home, you can see that there's a whole bunch of other entertainment self-sufficiency that you can achieve with Netflix and Disney Plus and Apple TV and Prime Video. The choice has been more abundant. And same with the game streaming around GeForce Now and Google Stadia, providing 4K availability, and Twitch TV. There are comments around this, in 1665, this is from James Jansen, found this from the Science Party. He said that, the Reddit comment said that in 1665, the University of Cambridge temporarily closed due to the bubonic plague. Isaac Newton had to work from home, and he used his time to develop calculus and the theory of gravity. So if you're shut down and sent home, be like Isaac, do something productive. And the comments were generally positive, but one of the people said, well, Newton didn't have Dark Souls 3 with DLC. So that's an action RPG game, and with infinite, constantly new content to play with. So this is sort of the challenge that we would essentially get used to in terms of trying to get more productivity at home. Obviously, there's a whole raft of things that are available to keep you entertained, but also remote learning should be adopted quite easily. Now is a perfect time to upskill yourself, whether it's Coursera, Khan Academy, and Skillshare. There are over, and Udemy, there's over 450 free online courses from Ivy League schools on Class Central. In Australia, there's Newtopia. So this is actually a lead generator for other university courses based on your curiosity that are determined through the online platform. So check out Newtopia. And Japanese students have held their graduation ceremonies for primary school in Minecraft amid the school cancellation. So if kids can do it, we can do it too. COVID Base is another one where we can actually look at new projects on COVID-19. So it's a work in progress curated list of projects, news and data related to COVID-19. Now is a better time to start a new project and to upskill yourself in the fourth industrial revolution. For us, when we work on automation jobs as well, we have these tools that are available, whether it's Microsoft Azure's automated machine learning, AWS, Google Cloud, and IBM Cloud. There's things like Data Robot and H2O.ai, which is essentially democratizing AI in terms of not needing the expertise of a data scientist to actually run a lot of these machine learning algorithms. So it makes that end consumer make this machine learning models more accessible, because a lot of the times it used to take days to try to train a model. Now you can use this automated machine learning to actually benchmark the best model to apply, as well as clean up all your data sets and do the necessary data science things to your data set to make it viable for a prediction model. So yeah, data robots, an example of that. There's also robotic process automations that can do for your own job. So think about those repetitive tasks that you're doing at work. When you're trying to look busy in the office, now is the time to start thinking, well, how do I codify those processes and do it in a way to use these robotic process automations and codify those steps and make a robot to do it? Because with that, you can then, just chill at home and do something like what this guy's doing here. Maybe not quite. Okay, so that's quarantine day 6, unfortunately for him. This is Tesla's sort of vision of self-sufficiency at home, because they have the solar roofs that's coming online soon, and they also have the Tesla Powerwall to store that energy, and the electric vehicles, and sort of the home automations will come along the way through the Tesla app. So in terms of self-sufficiency, you can also look at vertical farming. If you no longer require the necessary supply chains, you can actually grow your own food with these vertical farms. And Kimball Musk and others are actually looking at providing this sort of hyper local vertical farming that's sustainable, and exactly where the produce is happening. There's also 5G internet connectivity that's coming online through satellites with Starlink and OneWeb and a range of others. So essentially, these are going to have, as long as you have line of sight to the sky, so you'll be able to beam down the internet. And it also improve the connections globally, because we no longer have these restrictions of the signals having to bypass a lot of land and cables. It's actually seeing that line of sight through satellite to satellite and satellite to your home. So this is going to be creating abundant of gigabit connections in self-sufficiency at home. There's also 3D printing. So Archivest is looking at the adoption of 3D printing being at a tipping point. They've been saying this for a while, but I think right now it's actually get to the point, the knee of the curve. So in 2015, GE produced the first 3D printed fuel nozzle, which combining 20 parts into one. In 2019, the GE9X engine contained 304 3D printed parts. So at this rate of adoption, adjusting for the reduction in complexity, this large percentage of the GE9X engine could be 3D printed by the late 2020s. So if you look at this trend, this is sort of the exponential curve that we're all used to now, in terms of especially with the coronavirus. With 3D printed parts in one aircraft engine, it's going to hit 4,000 parts into one by 2024. 3D printing also, looking at sort of curve around reducing the number of parts required. So this is that total over the next 20 years. 3D printing has actually been done at, for example, in hospitals, saving them with these valves that have been 3D printed by these volunteers. So they've turned something that used to cost $11,000 into being $1. Using sort of 3D printers, helping the patients. About 10 patients have used this so far, but there's about 100 that have been printed using this method to help people in the hospitals to breathe. But then the downside of this is that the medical company that came up with that design is actually threatened to sue these volunteers for these life-saving coronavirus treatments. So the ethics and the PR discussions around, what would you do if you had a patent that could save lives, but people actually 3D printing these for, against your will? So, I think this sort of moment of ethics has actually been discussed around 3D printing, and I think now is the time to actually push companies to release these patents to be able to allow the abundance to happen for the volunteers to save lives in the community. And the last point I want to touch on is unself-isolating in the virtual world and transcending your physical self. So, we've heard earlier from Aaron around virtual reality, the events that have been cancelled, that VR might be the solution to the impact the coronavirus is having on the events industry. And you're seeing these VR events that are organized by, say, Vive, HTC Vive, in these virtual reality environments. So more and more investment will go into this to make these experiences better and more accessible, and actually improve the quality and adoption of virtual reality. Valve actually sold out immediately after being available on stock for the Valve Index, because of Half-Life Alyx, the sort of, prime game that's be coming out. Essentially, that will bring VR to the mainstream for gamers. And also, Facebook Horizon just closed their alpha. Their closed alpha just began this month, and essentially Horizons is like the Ready Player One movie's Oasis. So you got your Facebook avatars and be able to interact with your friends, and also Facebook at work. It will actually have an angle in terms of getting enterprise to adopt this for their colleagues, to get that sort of virtual working environment more enjoyable and more immersive. This is an example from last year.
What can your face do? Can you show us?
Well, I've always hoped you would ask me that question. So I have some pretty good, I think, mouth movement.
How about your eyes? Can you look left, right, up, down? Good.
Yeah, I'm gonna be surprised. Ooh. I think one of my favorites is puffing my cheeks.
The mouthwash commercial.
And rolling my tongue.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, not a lot of people can do that.
Yeah, so I mean, the technology that was last year. So unfortunately, F8 is cancelled or being made online this year. But that technology will be even better, and hopefully they can create a VR event for F8 coming up. This is the Tesla suit. So we had Tesla suit, the team over at Singularity U Australia this late last year, and they do full body haptic suits. So this is using the TENS technology for muscle stimulation. It does motion capture and avatar systems. It has climate control systems to simulate heat and coolness, and a biometric system for your enterprise use cases. So this is actually here and now. They've just recently developed a haptic glove as well to actually get that sort of tactile sensation in virtual reality. And researchers are looking at how to actually create that sort of minute touch sensations using these air puffs at the fingertips. So this is sort of all coming online to create a better immersive experience. We're looking at seeing researchers simulate the sense of taste as well. Think about simulating saltiness or sweetness or sourness and tanginess. These technologies are creating all the mimicry of our senses. We've already got hearing and sight, and the sense of smell is coming online as well. So Neuralink is probably the next level with all this sensation mimicry, because this is a brain computer interface that Elon Musk is heading up. Essentially, the chip and wires will be less than the size of a penny. The wires themselves will be a tenth the width of a human hair to be able to sort of not cause any damage. And these will be implanted directly into the brain using a robotic surgeon. This N1 chip implant over here will be able to access all the sort of brain waves you have through the electrodes in the wires. And it will be able to access that through your app on your smartphone, to see all the things that you would like to learn and all the things that it's reading in your mind. So this is sort of the future vision of brain-computer interfaces. But they're actually doing human trials later this year to see how well they can do. And apparently it's going to be 10 times better than what the current technologies are in terms of reading and eventually writing to the human brain. So exciting times. So with all this sort of sensors that they're mimicking through, all this virtual reality and haptic touches and body suits and sense of taste, and with Neuralink, we're starting to look at a world like the Matrix. So this is Cypher in the Matrix saying, well, I know that this steak is fake in the Matrix, but when I taste it, I can't tell the difference. It's amazing. And, ignorance, he says, is bliss. And, why live through a pandemic when you can live in the Matrix? And this sort of imagining transcending your physical self through this sort of digital transformation is sort of the journey we're taking on. And a lot of this is touching on the themes of transhumanism. That's transcending our physical biology through science and technology, using all the technologies we mentioned earlier. So whether it's enhancing our intelligence, extending our healthy human lifespan, or improving our well-being, these are sort of things that transhumanists around the world are trying to advocate for. In terms of human needs and well-being, we know this from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, whether it's the physiological to the safety to the love and belonging to esteem and self-actualization. And we can see also from Singularity University's Global Grand Challenges that a lot of these Global Grand Challenges are about meeting the human needs along these Maslow hierarchy of needs. Once we get through the sort of scarcity mindset that I mentioned at the start of this talk, whether that's, getting enough toilet paper rolls to make you feel safe and at home, and your food, water, and shelter, then it's about, okay, well, how to create a safety net for everyone. Universal basic income might actually create a floor for everyone to actually get that sort of level of safety. Tesla are also creating these home automations and abundance of energy and storage. And eventually also virtual reality, you can actually connect virtually and feel that sense of belonging through these virtual worlds. In terms of esteem, we've got your social media posts and connectivity through other people, and then self-actualization through your smart devices, whether it's iOS or Android, to actually say, well, what is the sort of purpose you're trying to achieve by connecting to the internet? Eventually with Neuralink to the cloud, this is sort of where you're starting to self-transcend, I guess, which is the last pillar of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then we can look to the skies in terms of abundance of, making us a multi-planetary species. So with that, I'd just like to leave with you that, automation will create this sort of journey of abundance for us. The technologies available today and the technologies that are going to be available tomorrow will accelerate that journey. And, I'd like to stay with you and actually say, well, I'm really looking forward to that journey. So thank you very much.
Peter, thank you. I work at this place, and I just got a whole lot of new stuff from that presentation. That's how on the edge it was. So thank you for that.
No worries.
So we have a lot of good questions, but I have a huge favor to ask of you if you're up for it.
Right.
We have the ability to make up for the last session that broke by getting Yost back on here real quick. Would you mind going and recording answers that we can share afterwards with the folks so that we can do the Future of Learning session too?
Sure thing.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for being here. Audience, we will get you guys some answers to your questions. There's some really good ones in there, so I look forward to your answers as well. And everybody, we will pull you into the next session. We're going to flip over there real quick and see if we can make up for some lost time. So thanks everybody. Peter, thanks for being here.
We'll
see you guys.
See you soon. Bye.